Hi, welcome to Viewfinder, a video essay series where I analyse the ins and outs of filmmaking. In this episode, I want to discuss how to edit an action scene. Action films, especially nowadays, seem to get one common complaint, and it's how the action is cut. Some people prefer smooth and elegant long takes, and some prefer fast cutting, and really, both have their advantages and disadvantages. Personally, I feel like fast cutting has got a bad reputation over the past decade, and for understandable reason. Nowadays, the movie industry has for the majority strayed from the more extreme side of fast cutting. You know, like this kind of stuff? Fast cutting can be used for all sorts of reasons, but when it's simply the preferred way to edit an action scene, I think there needs to be a few rules put into place. Which brings me to Mad Max Fury Road. When discussing his editing preference for Fury Road, director George Miller spoke about how if a guy did it, it would look like every other action movie. The key there isn't necessarily the gender preference, though I will touch on that later. It's Miller's insistence on not wanting to make something that's been done before. Simply put, he wants his work to be different. One way he does this is by constantly evolving, while still keeping a consistent style. For example, Mad Max 2 had 1,200 cuts, whereas Fury Road had 2,700, with the latter only being just over 20 minutes longer. But that's not to say the films don't share any similarities. For instance, those fast push-ins and pull-outs that have become a popular trait in Mad Max tradition? Well, he tends to use these as bookmarks for things he wants the audience to be aware of, such as bringing a character into a scene, or taking one out. Shots like these create focus, and also they give the audience a chance to breathe, so sequences like this don't become too much for the viewer. And this is where editor Margaret Sixel comes into play. When directors talk about why they employ women to edit their films, it's interesting to find that most of them tend to reference the lack of ego that a woman takes into the editing room. Quentin Tarantino and Martin Scorsese are keen backers of this concept, referring to how female editors are less likely to cause conflicts than male editors. But when referencing why women work well in the editing room, I think George Miller hits the nail on the head. Of all people, Sixel knows what Miller wants from Fury Road, therefore by bringing her in and letting her put her own twist on that style, you get moments like this. Whoa. Except editing moments like that one, especially now, come very rarely. One reason you get films edited like this is because a lot of the time, the actor isn't actually that great at what he or she is doing, therefore the editor cuts quickly to mask it. But other times, it's a really conscious decision. Take a look at these two examples, both from the same film franchise with the same editor, except 27 years between them, and see if you notice something. Raiders of the Lost Ark cuts so much more frequently than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But why? If I had to guess, I'd say it's for one big reason. When Indiana Jones climbs beneath the truck in Raiders, it actually happened. There was no CGI or green screen, it was stuntman Terry Leonard actually climbing beneath a moving truck. I think most editing studios, when CGI is prominent in a scene at least, want the audience to really take in the CGI and the spectacle it creates, which usually means showing exaggerated action through exaggerated camera angles or editing techniques, like slow-mo or longer takes with quick and sharp movements to add effect. Whereas when you film something for real, in this case Terry Leonard's stunt, there's no reason to not just cut on instinct. This is a common misconception about fast cutting and long takes. I think most people assume that because someone is actually doing something, you don't need to cut because there's nothing to hide. Why not just show it in a long take? But that's not necessarily the right mind frame to have. For instance, say you're filming an action scene, and both of your actors can actually fight. Do you insist on using a wanna, like this scene from Creed? Well, you don't have to, because you can also cut as much as you want, like this scene that's also from Creed, except this scene is the final fight of the film. Of course, all of it depends on what you're trying to convey. Are you trying to convey how tiring a character's first big fight is, as well as his focus and determination throughout the fight? Then shoot it in one take to show the fatigue, and every time your character emotes, shoot him in a single. Or are you trying to do something else? like maybe showing a much longer fight with the same character, except this time the character knows he isn't the better fighter. Then maybe pace your cuts at the beginning of the fight, and as the fight goes on, speed them up, until you have this.
Getting hit with some hard shots, but landing some of his own, and Adonis is firing back.
By doing this, we feel the tension building, as well as the energy of the fight. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say is, when you're trying to decide how to edit a scene, just try and think about what you want the scene to tell the audience. Oh, and if you want this to be really obvious, make it a point to finish your scene on a shot that tells your audience what you want them to think. The point I'm making here is that there is no one way to shoot and edit an action scene. And that's why I wanted to make this video. Sure, I'm a huge sucker for a well-filmed long take, but at the same time, I don't want to discredit how powerful fast cutting can be. So, the next time you're watching an action film, try and look at the pace of the cuts, what shots the editor wants you to focus on, and what the scene concludes on. And then ask yourself, why? Hi everybody, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you want more videos like this one, be sure to like this video and subscribe.